Good afternoon. I am joined by the wonderful Hayden. Hello, how are we?
Hi there. Good afternoon, Steve. How are you? I'm fine, thank you.
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, Hayden's here to talk to us about, for want of a better word that people will probably understand, oxygen therapy. And I believe that you are a diver.
That's correct, yes.
You work for, is it Cumbria?
The Cumbria-hyperbaric, Cumbria-hyperbaric, yeah. We were originally called the Cumbria-hyperbaric Therapy Trust or Complementary Therapy Trust.
Right.
We've decided to revise that to the shorter name, following over the last 18 months various activities that we've been up to, and we're going to focus more on the oxygen therapy. So just known as Cumbria-hyperbaric. Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful. Now, what actually is oxygen therapy? I mean, a lot of people will associate this with diving.
It is associated with diving, notwithstanding what I said 5 minutes ago. It is a diving tool, and in the diving industry, we use it to treat divers with decompression sickness. That's what most people will be familiar with.
Yeah.
It is basically the administration of oxygen at higher than atmospheric pressure, and we achieve this by administering it in a barrier chamber or hyperbaric chamber, where we can increase the pressure. It gets quite technical, so you must sort of tell me how technical you want me to get, but once you're breathing at a higher pressure, it allows oxygen to pass into your blood plasma at much greater concentrations, up to 25 times the amount of oxygen will enter your plasma. And then as it goes in a downstream effect, it enters your cells and tissues and so on, which has all sorts of effect on your body.
This is something that I'm particularly interested in, and I know some of our listeners will be. One of the upsides of oxygen therapy is a rejuvenation of various cells within the body.
That's correct, yes. You have in your body what are called transcription factors. It's been in the news quite a lot lately. So people are, funny enough, it's something good to come out of everything in the last years. People have become a bit more discerning in what they read and what they understand. And people are now becoming acquainted with things called transcription factors. There's 1,600 transcription factors in the human genome. I have particular interest in the hypoxia-inducible transcription factors. So when your body goes into a hypoxic state from injury or illness, a whole chain of events will unfold. Your inflammatory response, the hypoxia-inducible factors will trigger other genes, approximately 60 of them. The key one of which is the vascular endothelial growth factor, and that basically causes or instructs your body. It's a protein that instructs your body to grow new blood vessels. So if you had an injury or you have a disease that's causing poor oxygenation into tissues, and blood flow is restricted through inflammation or other cause, it will cause your body to grow new blood vessels at a far accelerated rate. And in doing that, it accelerates the healing. So that's basically the cellular response from any kind of cell in the body. It upregulates the functioning of that cell. It upregulates its uptake of energy. ATP is the energy currency of a cell. Adenosine triphosphate is the compound. The uptake of that facilitates greater metabolism, greater cell growth, division, release of stem cells. I could go on for a while, but it upregulates all of that.
It's to kind of put it down on a very basic level that I suppose I can understand, a lot of people can understand. What we're looking at here is the use of oxygen to treat certain conditions that may involve a reduction in the veins, blood going through to the heart. It helps with people that have very poor oxygen levels due to COPD, asthma, various lung conditions. And what it basically is doing, oxygen therapy helps to rejuvenate the vessels within these systems and helps us to breathe that little bit better. Generally speaking, I think oxygen therapy is only advised to be used for people that have poor oxygen levels, less than 92%.
No, not necessarily. It's a valid therapy for anyone, even if it's just a well-being therapy.
Yeah.
The reason being, everybody can benefit from higher oxygen levels, even if you're not particularly ill with any specific condition. There's natural age-related decline can be managed, skin elasticity, but then also injuries. So you might break an arm or a leg. The general sort of term or the idea is that people who are struggling to recover are the guys that we would generally see. If you're recovering okay from an injury or a sickness, you not necessarily need it. It's not going to hurt you. It will benefit you. But most of the end users that end up in chambers are those with wound healing, neurological deficit, brain injury, all that kind of thing, that have been discharged from care. So the doctors send them home and say, we've done everything we can do for you. This is just your life now. Those people arrive at hyperbaric chambers, and a great many of them, through their own testimony and through trials and observational studies, go away with at least some benefit. It's not a cure. Nobody ever said it was a cure. Well, some did, but any reputable operator will tell you this is not a cure for anything. This helps you manage a great wide array of conditions. It will cure some things. It will sort some things out to the level where they won't bother you anymore. But not necessarily if your oxygen levels are low. It's more, when you talk about low oxygen, it's more about cellular level oxygen, where you might not be aware that you have low oxygen in a particular area or tissue or system in your body. In the brain, for example, if you have low oxygen surrounding an injury, you'll have an ischemic penumbra, which is an area surrounding that injury that may not be dead tissue. It may not be necrotic brain tissue, but it might still be viable and recoverable once you get its oxygen levels back to normal. So that benefits people from traumatic brain injury, stroke, any number of those neurodegenerative disorders that people tend to get sent home for.
What would be the benefits for anyone that is suffering from a pre-existing condition such as COPD and asthma? Is there anything that would increase their quality of life, really?
It would do, but there are two things to consider with COPD and asthma. I'm an asthmatic myself. On my medical record, it says resolved because I gave up smoking, and it's a great helped a great deal. But when you have COPD, the lung surface area is reduced, basically, and you can transport less oxygen into your blood because there's a mechanically a lower surface area in the lungs to do that. But if I can increase the partial pressure of the oxygen, or the environment can cause more oxygen to pass through a lesser surface area, I could take half of your lung surface area and transport the equivalent amount of oxygen that a healthy lung would do. If that makes sense to you. And that is the rationale behind saying if you have COPD or asthma, this will help you. HPO is a great reliever of inflammation, and a lot of these conditions are coupled with inflammation, especially asthma. It immediately starts to relieve the inflammation. The thing to be concerned about, and a lot of medical professionals will point this out, is as you become compressed in a chamber, the air becomes denser. So it is a little bit mechanically harder to breathe. You and I may not notice it, or you may not notice it, but somebody with 10% lung function might. It can be a problem in that regard. However, I've never seen it happen. I've never seen someone have a problem, and I've had all sorts of people under pressure. It does sort of stretch into the creation of oxygen-free radicals as well, which some doctors will claim may cause further damage to your lungs. But that has been disputed, and there is sufficient scientific literature to debunk that and say this is not the case. The body protects itself after the first treatment.
I think for a lot of people, there is obviously some kind of concern within the differentiating opinions of medical personnel, as you said there. Some people seem to think that the oxygen therapy is great and it is very rejuvenating, but what are the long-term benefits and what are the long-term problems that can happen by having additional oxygen therapy?
Well, medical professionals generally will be opposed to it if they haven't heard about it. I have the greatest respect for the whole medical infrastructure and the people in it. You'll see through my many articles, I praise the N.H.S, I praise medical professionals.
That's without question.
But what I don't praise is the commissioning policy sometimes, because I find it a little bit misguided, and they look for fault in it. There are no real long-term ill effects. There is a thing called oxygen toxicity, which it can become a problem. You have two kinds, pulmonary and neurological toxicity. Those are covered on my blog. It's very detailed, so I'll only just touch on it here. But to say that the pressures and the treatments we do don't come anywhere close to causing a problem for people. And we do take breaks, days off. You would go through, say, 4 weeks of treatments and then break for a while. Then you might do another 4 weeks of treatment. And you might go down to two times a week as a maintenance treatment, depending on what you have, depending on what you're trying to achieve. It might go on for your life. It might only be the initial 4 weeks. Yeah. You might see a permanent improvement in whatever your condition might be.
I mean, it's as you were saying earlier on, Hayden, it isn't for everybody, and as you mentioned, it's kind of coming at the point when you've exhausted any other kind of treatment. It's available that may help certain people.
Absolutely, yes.
How would we access this?
Currently in Cumbria, there's no chamber that anyone can go to. There used to be chambers at West Cumberland Hospital because they treated divers. There's quite an active diving community in Cumbria. So when a diver gets decompression sickness, they need to be quickly shipped off to a chamber. It's the only treatment to have, and it is incidentally one of the only indicated treatments by the N.H.S. who will approve it and pay for it. Yeah. But now you would probably end up on the Wirral if you had it in a diving accident. Yeah. The nearest chamber to us in Cumbria, it's actually very close to you as opposed to me. I'm up in Carlisle. Yeah. Is in Morecambe, but technically it's Lancashire. Yeah. But they do serve the people of Cumbria, and I have a great deal of respect for them. We chat online from time to time. Yeah. We interact, and they're doing fabulous work down there. They've got a website. They're called the Breath for Life Children's Charity. Yeah. And they are currently also trying to raise funds to build external toilets to improve their facility. Yeah. So as I've said in my most recent article, it's not like we're trying to compete for the same donors. People should contribute well, because they do serve the Cumbrian community. They serve the Lancashire community, and they really struggle. They're a small unit. They can take, I think, 5 people at a time. It's restricted now because of COVID. They can only take 3 at a time. But I send people there if they're looking for somewhere. Outside of that, the next one to the north is in a place called Peebles in Scotland. I commissioned their chamber last January 2019, or April 2019. They closed at the moment because of COVID. Not obviously, at all. Yeah. But outside of that, we don't have a facility for Cumbria, where there is great need. There are people that need this. There are people that will benefit from it. And we're not trying to think of putting in something as a private medical type facility. We're talking about charitable rates. We have to charge something because we'd have, there's bills to pay. But a private place in London might charge you up to 200 quid an hour. Yeah. We're talking about 30, maybe 20. So and if we can, for free, So
what kind of medical qualifications do you have, and how do you assess whether anybody is okay to have the oxygen therapy?
Well, if you're familiar with anything I've written on my blog, you'll notice one of my favorite sayings in any of those articles is, "I'm not a doctor." Please don't be misled by that. I'm not a medical professional. I'm a hyperbaric technician, a chamber technician, a diving supervisor. And when we study for diving supervisor for offshore and inshore diving, we do, I suppose you could call it it's level 6, so it's diploma level physiology, physics. But by no means am I a medical professional. I don't claim to be. No. This is my specific field of interest, and I've spent 25 years researching it myself, as well as my formal training in diving. So I do know a fair deal about it as a layman.
You probably know an awful lot more than a lot of the doctors and GPs would.
Well, I don't like saying that because it simply divides the audience, and then I find I've got doctors against me rather than doctors who are interested. But I have had that said to me. Yeah. I've been stringently assessed by experts in the industry, one of which on the Isle of Man. When I left, he said, I can teach you nothing. You should go. I'm not trying to toot my own horn by any measure, but I do know it, and I'm passionate about it. I have a good
you can tell just by speaking to you for this short period of time, the passion is just oozing right the way through.
Well, I can see it helping so many people, and what's more, I can see it helping the N.H.S. It would relieve such a burden on the N.H.S.
Particularly at the moment when we're talking about breathing conditions.
Breathing conditions and ARDS and all of that, it relieves all of that. It's the trials have shown, and they've been done in New York and China, that every single patient that went into the chamber with chronic ARDS from COVID, who had been on ventilators for up to 18 days, were discharged from care 5 days later with no problem. It is coming around. Unfortunately, these things don't happen overnight.
No.
And the powers that be require volumes and volumes of evidence, which is, I think there's currently about, 16, I counted 16 ongoing trials around the world for the use of HBOT for COVID and long COVID, the enduring effects of it. So we watch that closely, and we are trying to bring that to the public's awareness. This is available.
Absolutely wonderful.
But back to the original question of how do we access it, usually you'll find a chamber, or if you've got a chance of finding a charitable chamber, it'll be at one of the multiple sclerosis centers. It'll be MSNTC, is the multiple sclerosis national treatment centers. That was originally set up by Professor Philip James. He was a professor of hyperbaric medicine and managed and ran the Wolfson Hyperbaric Unit at the University of Dundee Medical Hospital Training School. He taught medicine, and he was accompanied by David Downey, who's the only person to receive what's it, an I think, OBE for services to hyperbaric medicine. David's on the Isle of Man. He's the chap I was telling you about. I spent some time with him about 18 months ago. Super guy, one of the most knowledgeable people around, and we got on well. Access to it, there's about 120 of those chambers around the country. A lot of them aren't allowed to operate at the moment, which defies my logic in my head, because if the N.H.S. were to use them, I understand someone like me is not an infection control specialist. I'm not a doctor. But why not send some people over to those chambers and commandeer them, so to speak, or ask for their use, request their use for the seriously ill.
If anybody's wanting to follow you a bit closer, I know that you do have a blog. How would they actually get in touch with you, Hayden?
The website is Cumbria-hyperbaric, so it's cumbria-hyperbaric.org, so hyphen in between the two, cumbria-hyperbaric.org. The general pages explain basically what it is, what the therapy is, who it can benefit, a list of conditions which it can help, those that are approved by the Undersea and Hyperbaric Medical Society, those which are then considered off-label or experimental, where we say cerebral palsy, autism. There isn't evidence to conclusively prove that it helps, but there's a lot of anecdotal testimony and so on that says it does, and there are certain case studies that show it does. So personally, I'm for it, but we can't scientifically say either way at the moment. So the more we use that, and the more observational evidence we bring forward, the more likely we are to encourage further studies.
I believe there was some studies going forward with vascular dementia and with Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's.
There is, yes.
And it's, again, a lot of it is anecdotal that does show that there is some change within the person themselves.
The one guy particularly who's pioneering that is a guy by the name of Paul Harch, and he operates in the USA. He did a particular study where he did MRI imaging and SPECT imaging, SPECT, single proton emission tomography, before and after a single HBOS session. So he can actually measure, and he has measured the changes in the brain to say this has helped this gentleman. And I was reading a case study of his this morning, of an elderly gentleman who was discharged home after 40 treatments, where he was looking at being institutionalized. And that's the difference. You say, how will it benefit someone? And it won't cure it, but it might make the difference between being able to live semi-independently at home or being institutionalized because of behavioral changes. That's where the difference lies. And that is a quality of life difference that you can't ignore. No one can ignore that.
I think that's where it is. It is down to the individual to make that choice as to what kind of quality of life they want, given the particular diagnosis that they have. I could talk for hours.
I could sit here all day, and we did talk loosely about coming back again at a future time. I'd love it if
definitely.
I could.
Absolutely, definitely.
In the meantime, though, if people want to get in touch, talk to me. I'm happy to give people scientific information.
Yeah.
There is a disclaimer on my website, and it says the information on here should not be construed as personal medical advice.
No.
Always talk to your healthcare professional. If the healthcare professional wants to phone me, I'm absolutely willing to talk to anybody at any level, at any time, including Parliament, about the actual science behind it, the physics behind it. Sometimes I get carried away and I sort of leave people trailing because they're not, I forget that I've been reading about it for 25 years.
Yeah.
But if people want to follow me, I'm on Facebook for the time being.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, Cumbria-hyperbaric. But any Google search for Cumbria-hyperbaric will turn up the blog, the website, all of the social media leads. I'm on LinkedIn in my personal capacity as well, and people are welcome to get in touch with their questions.
That's great. Hayden, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and we will come back and we'll talk a little bit further. Maybe after when all this lockdown thing's over, we can actually get in the studio together and things.
I'd love that. Thank you. I'd appreciate that. And for my own challenge to do this, it's nice to be heard by someone, and I appreciate the effort. And thank you for the invitation.
No, anytime at all. The more information on things, particularly with health, that we can get out there, the better people are.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. All the very best. Cheers now.